Welcome back to the Buzzworthy Podcast, where we chat with the leading thought leaders in the consulting industry. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Mia Blymire Farish, an entrepreneur, speaker, and technology strategist. She shares her passion and life motto of GSD, Get Shit Done, with her readers, podcast listeners, and clients. Misha leads GSD Factor Consulting, where she and her team partner with clients to identify, innovate, and implement to ignite change throughout organizations. Let's see what makes Misha so buzzworthy. Welcome to the show, Misha. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
I want to know where you got that hat.
My hat is a Gigi Pip hat, and it is part of my signature, but the inside says, "To a woman who wears many hats," and that's how I was sold.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. And where are you calling in from today?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Tennessee. Our neighbors. We're Tennessee and Virginia are little tippy neighbors. I don't know how you would want to say that, but it's like two tips touching there. The other. So awesome. So we were talking before the show about entrepreneurialism and
Yes.
what kind of got you into business in the whole 9 yards. And we were talking about the fact that all businesses are struggling with something. And the crazy thing is a lot of us don't even know what we're struggling with. We just know there's pressure, a little tightness in our chest or headache or just that uneasiness of like, there's something I should be doing and I don't know. And, you were sharing with me that, it comes down to three things. It comes down to either a process is not working right. There's people maybe not in the right seat doing the right work, or maybe there's some tech that's keeping the flow and the efficiencies of the company from hitting its peak. But that all said, it's like, how do we find out or figure out which one it is?
We've got to do some soul searching. We've got to
soul searching. Here we go, people. Let's do some soul searching with Misha, the GSD. Let's go. Tell us how to do this.
I think a lot of times it's pausing, taking a step back, right? And saying, okay, what is working well? What is not working well? And doing that with your team and doing that in what I like to call a dream big session. Because when you can put out the noise for a couple hours with your team and sit down and get those whiteboards going, the magic starts to happen. And all of a sudden you start to go, oh, I can identify, innovate, and implement. And I can look at these areas of people, process, and tech, and I can gain that clarity and those aha moments, right? It's those light bulb moments that happen when you just take a step back from the business and go, a pivot needs to happen, but I need to pause. I need to reflect. I need to retrospect, pivot, and I need to relaunch.
But people, I know when I was a young lad 20 years ago with beginning my business, to tell somebody that is in triage mode, consistent triage mode, right? We're talking emergency room in the middle of the pandemic is what our lives feel like. We're working 12 hours a day. And Misha sits there and says, you just need to pause. How are you going to get somebody who is in that mindset to slow down long enough? And maybe that's part of the question is like, how long does it take to do this retrospective pause? How do we approach that like shift of like, you're going to slow down and speed up? And then how long does that whole process of processing take?
Sure. So you said it. We got to slow down to speed up because we have to kind of get out of that daily trenches and really kind of take that pause. But the pause doesn't have to be very long, right? When we're thinking about creating, when we're thinking about identifying and innovating and implementing, we can take just a couple hours to get some really good juices flowing. And then what I like to tell people is let's prioritize. And the framework that I use, that I talk about throughout my books and my podcast, is this now, next, and later. And the reason that now, next, and later is so great is it's very agile, it's very flexible. Now could be today, next could be tomorrow, or now could be this quarter, and next could be the next quarter, right? So you can make
Mm,
it adapt for you, and you can make it extremely agile. And when you're doing those buckets of now, next, and later, you don't want more than 2 or 3 things in that bucket. I think a lot of times our
mm,
to-do lists are so overwhelming and they're so large that we are just completely overwhelmed and we're stuck. But with the
mm,
now, next, and later formatting, we look at what are 2 or 3 things that we need to get done now? What are those 2 to 3 things next and then later? And as you start to see that progress and you continue to show up and you just continue to take those little steps forward, you start to
mm.
get shit done and you start to gain that momentum, which is really crucial to those next steps of growth and scale.
So is this something that a lot of people can do like on their own? Is this something that we can self-guide ourselves through after, say, reading your book or listening to your podcast? Or is it better to have some outward or outside help to guide us through that process?
It's both and, right? So through
Okay.
my books and my workbooks, you can do some of that internal work yourself. But then maybe if you're looking at your team or looking at your organization, sometimes having that third party voice to come in and guide through those sessions. And again, our Dream Big sessions are only 2 hours long, right? They pack a punch, and we
Hmm.
are walking away with a very clear roadmap, a very concise idea of what is the next step, and people are walking away with those action steps. I think a lot of
Mm,
times when you are bringing in third parties, sometimes you just kind of mull over things and then you don't walk away with the next action, right? Like an
mm,
example is I never leave a meeting without my next meeting booked because I want to be
mm,
sure that everybody understands that this is the next step, this is the next thing that we're doing. And so I
mm,
think for those individuals and those individual leaders, the book and the workbook are great because it starts to get you prepped for that mindset. But really, when you start to get into that team and that organization, then having that third party or that third person voice say it and walk the team through it, that's
mm.
where the magic happens.
I love that. I love that. And it's weird because we get bogged up in our own processes, and sometimes I feel like we even create busy work to make ourselves feel busier because that tells us that we're doing it right, when really we're doing it opposite of right, when we should be doing less as the leader, right? And if we've been in business for a couple years, we're wearing a lot of hats, kind of like you, Misha.
Mhm.
But we're wearing the wrong hats. We're wearing the hats that we should be delegating, right? And when you're talking about that prioritization, where does the people part of this whole thing come into play for, say, maybe a solopreneur versus somebody that's like me that maybe has a team of 10?
So from a solopreneur perspective, you may be a solopreneur, but you still have a team around you. You have mentors, you have advisors. I like to call it, you have your clan or your insiders board, right?
Hmm.
So you still actually have a team surrounding you, whether you realize it or not. And that's one of the things that I actually walk you through in my book is how to build that clan for your personal life and how to build that insiders board as a solopreneur. But then when
Mm,
you do have a team, it is looking at each of those individuals with their skill sets and their talents and saying, are you in the right position? Are you doing the right things? And, if someone is not in the right position or not doing the right things, they don't have the right energy level to match what is being asked of them. And so I talk
mm,
a lot about your energy bank and how do you manage that energy bank. And when you align that person with their skill sets and their talents, their
mm,
energy bank is going through the roof and that drive and motivation is there. And so when you're identifying, is it a people, process, or tech problem?
mhm,
That's where we start to look and say, are the right people in the right roles doing the right things? Are there things that we could automate from a technology or an AI perspective that would
mhm.
free them up to allow them to do more of those things? And is it really serving them? Is it really driving their innovation? Are they excited to be doing what they're doing?
I love it. And when we talk about technology, you touched on it just a minute. We talk about automation, and it's funny because I can't remember who said it, but there was somebody who wrote it in one of their books, and it was basically anything that you do twice, you should either automate or delegate. right? And a lot of times now with AI and where technology has gotten, I mean, in marketing, I free up people's like 20 to 40 hours of a month in just simple things like LinkedIn outreach, right? Where it's like, we need to talk to these people. We need to network. We need to expand our network. But who has the time to sit there and connect with people? It's like, well, you can either hire somebody to do it for you or you can automate it, right?
Right.
And when we're looking at our business on our internal and our fulfillment, where can, when we're talking about that tech stack, people forget about like, hey, automation is not just for your administrative stuff, right?
Mhm.
We have things in bookkeeping that we can automate now and all these other things. And AI can help us in a lot of ways, but how can we use things like AI and automation to help us better serve our clients in less time? Is there a process in which we can identify beyond just the, yeah, I've done it twice type of a philosophy in what we should be looking at technology to help us automate or delegate?
I think when you look at your daily tasks or assignments that you're doing, or as a leader, when you're looking at your team and their
Mhm.
core responsibilities, I
Mhm.
think taking a pause and asking the question of this is 20% of your time. Is there a solution out there that could maybe make it 5% of your time? And then looking at their
Mm.
core responsibilities over here and saying, okay, this is 30% of your time. But
Mhm.
also asking that team member, or ask you yourself if you're a solopreneur, does this bring me joy? Right? For me,
Mm.
social media posting does not bring me joy. What I do get joy out of is the creation of the content, right? So being
Mm.
able to have these ideas and take the inspiration from anywhere, right? It could be while I'm
Mhm.
sitting at my kids' softball, baseball games, or it could
Mhm.
be, while I'm driving down the road and I can do a voice note. I get a lot of joy by creating the content, but I get zero joy in creating the social post and then scheduling the social post. So it's
Ah.
also that element of checking in with yourself as an employee, as a leader, to say, what are the responsibilities of the role that
Uh-huh.
actually bring me joy, and which ones don't, and then
Mm.
finding the automation and the technologies to serve those areas that don't bring you that much joy anymore.
I love that. Now, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's a two-edged sword because I see people, especially in marketing and social media, as a tricky little bastard, if you don't mind me saying,
No.
because yeah, you could be getting a lot of joy out of creating social media,
Mhm.
but is creating social media a $250 job, an hour job, or is it a $20 an hour job? And so we have to be careful on, is it the best place? And correct me
Mhm.
if I'm wrong, but the best place where we're putting our time,
Sure.
right? And that it reminds me of Stephen Covey's quadrants. Like I'm proficient and I like doing it. I'm proficient and I don't like doing it. I'm not proficient and I love doing it. I'm not proficient and I don't like doing it. Right? And it's
Sure.
like, right. But I always say, it's like, you got to flip that coin and go, is it where you're supposed to be? If you're leading your company, is your social media content where you should be at? And if it is
Right.
creating the sales and you're leveraging that time to offset that $250 an hour, heck yeah, that is totally. And
Yep.
there's some people, that's their job. They're the promoter of their company. They have
Yeah.
gotten to the point where they're working on their business by being the face of, if you will, and everybody else takes care of everything else, right?
Yes.
Operations, the actual marketing, like you were talking about, the scheduling of the posts, taking the raw video and all this stuff. I was talking to a guy, he's done like 3,000 podcasts, shows hosted. He has, this is over like a 15-year period, okay? But still, he has edited every single one of those. Now, if you've ever edited audio or even video, that takes a long time, right?
Yes.
So, what could that person have done with those? Let's just
Mhm.
say it was an hour a piece. 3,000 hours is a year and a half of work time.
Right.
It's 2,080 work hours in a year for most people who take 4 weeks off a year. Okay. Plus
Yep.
all of the holidays and everything. So that's a year and a half of your life, or 10% of his life of the last 15 years. What could he have done better? Right.
Right.
And so how can we make sure that we don't let our passion blind where our focus should be as the leader of our company?
Agreed. And I think, as an example, for me, right, I am, from a GSD Factor perspective, all of the content is created by humans, me, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
none of our books, none of our podcasts, none of our posts are AI
Right,
generated, right? And
right.
that was our AI policy that we published 2.5 years
Mhm.
ago,
Right.
because we wanted to be truly authentic to
Uh-huh.
ourselves and to our brand and to our messaging.
Mm.
So because I want my voice to come through, whether it's my podcast, my social posts, my books, right? For me,
Mhm.
the writing of the content aligns with me being my true authentic self and saying every word that you see is from me.
Mhm.
And then everything else, how it gets out there, how it gets created, that's done by people, or that's done by
Mhm.
technology. And so
Mhm.
for me, it's important to for me to put my content out there, put the words out there, but then to
Mhm.
utilize automation and people
Mhm.
to automate that a little bit more.
I love that. I love that. So so if somebody's, besides, buying your book, and of course we'll have all the links in the show notes of all the things that you do, which is awesome. You got your podcast, we got your book, we got all that stuff in the show notes for everybody. Shy of just, sitting down and binging your shows and reading the books, if they wanted to get to started today, somebody's stuck in their business going, I can't get everything done in each day that I need to get done. What is the first thing they should be telling themselves to prepare themselves for this pause?
They need to seek that clarity and say, what is my why? And sometimes it's a reminder around the why of what you're doing, the why of what your business is, be it product, be it services, whatever. But it is to have that mindset ready for that transformation, because when we are being transformed, when we are pivoting, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable, but change is going to happen and it needs to happen. And those of us that are getting shit done on a regular basis, we are adaptable to change. We are constantly ebbing and flowing and saying, this doesn't work, so let's pivot. This doesn't work, and pivot. I love that Friends episode of the pivot around of carrying the couch around the corner and going upstairs, right? That's what I always share as a fun moment in my workshops with people. And but it's saying, okay, a change has to happen, and I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to continue to show up, and I'm going to really dig a little deeper and try to identify and innovate and then eventually implement the change that needs to happen, whether it's in myself as a person or whether it's in my organization, because we got to get more shit done.